Number 10. Hammam's baths. Bathing and hygiene are super important. At least that's what my mom tells me. That's why I do my best to shower more than once a week. I'm a man, and I can change if I have to, I guess. Well, baths were actually important to the Mughals as well, being that their heritage was a mix of Asiatic, Euro, Indian. They took a little from everything, and part of that was the Persian baths. The Persian baths were just one of those things they took. Called hammams. I hope I'm saying that right. They were social spaces to have baths, stay clean. It was very important back then. Now, bear in mind, if you will, I know some folks at home have issues with public pools because, well, you know, they're full of nastiness and, well, you'd be right, but today we have things to fight that. Imagine sharing bath water with the entire city and no one is wearing swim trunks. There's no chlorine pucks, vaccines are at least 1,000 years away, and diseases are rampant. Oh, and there's no toilet paper. Jump in, kids, the water's fine, it's nice and fun. Can you imagine? Imagine if I was in the water. You wouldn't want that. That's no good, that's gross. Ew, ew. Number 9, Babur the writer. I can relate to this quite a lot, actually. So Babur, the mighty warrior and king who brought upon the Mughal Empire, was a man to be respected. Or else it could wind you up in some serious trouble. I'd say hot water, but it's more like stinky bath water. However, while on the outside he was a super tough macho man, on the inside he was a softer, kinder man who not only enjoyed writing, but was also quite the socialite, just like myself. I like going to parties and meeting people, I like making friends. He loved his inner self so much that he started writing his own autobiography, started the trend of it actually. His was called Baburnama. Good name, I like it. And it detailed major events from his life. On the outside, Adam may look like a nerd, but on the inside, he's one of my dearest friends. I love Adam, he's a great guy. So he does something nice. Usually we say something rude, but I said something nice this time. He's a great guy. Number 8, Akbar's tolerance. Medieval times. It's safe to say that these times became to be known for their religious persecution. It's kind of how it went. Queen Mary made a career out of burning heretics. Slightly disagree with my church, Protestant, even though our overall arcing beliefs are founded in Christianity, and the only thing that separates us is a list of beliefs that really we can work together on? I don't think so. Away with these heretics. Yeah, that's kind of silly. Well, all long-winded jokes aside, for being a medieval king, Akbar was actually very tolerant of others' religious beliefs. This tolerance of others' beliefs actually aided the Mughal Empire in expanding to other sovereign areas of India, making them a lot stronger than they really should have been. Number 7, the melting pot. Okay, so it's late at night and you haven't been grocery shopping in over a week. Guilty. You're too lazy to get up and get groceries, and you work early tomorrow anyway. Ugh, sucks. However, you're also too motivated, or cheap, to not order takeout, so that's when you raid the cupboard like a teenager looking for munchy Pop-Tarts. You know the feeling. You start throwing everything in a pan and seeing what sticks, throwing in spices that you haven't used in a month. After all, it's said and done, you're left with, well, whatever the heck that is. The verdict though, is actually pretty good. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the Mughal Empire's religious melting pot of religions. I said it twice, but it makes sense. Another point to add here is Akbar's acceptance of other religious values was him coming up with his own called Din-i-Ilahi, which was the best part of Islam, Hinduism, and other smaller religions in the area. You'd be surprised how well those work together. Number 6, Shah Jahan's reign. A lot of times throughout history, the Mughal Empire kind of gets looked over. Most likely because of British invasion and because, well, the British took all their loot and art and national treasures and they're sitting comfortably somewhere in a British museum. But you're not getting them back, they're ours now. But that's the point. The Mughal Empire was no joke, and at one point in history may or may not have been the wealthiest empire on earth. A center for writing, arts, crafts, and treasures. They had the highest GDP in the world at one point. That's pretty impressive. Makes sense in how they could afford to build places like the Taj Mahal that apparently change color 3 times a day because of the sun and its pure white construction. Makes a lot of sense when you add it up. Number 5, house arrest. Classic story, really. Medieval times is also defined by kings and queens and emperors and leaders handing down their dynasties to male-born heirs. Has to be male, those are the rules, I don't make them up. And sometimes people attempt their best to, well, steal the throne or the crown from underneath their fathers, mothers, uncles, or really anyone who's got power and anyone who doesn't. It's kind of how it goes, a vicious cycle. Well, as successful as Shah Jahan was, even his own blood was out for him. His own son, I'm going to try and pronounce this, Aurangzeb. His own son Aurangzeb. That's a hell of a name. It sounds like a supervillain. His own son Aurangzeb put him and his sister under house arrest, doing his best to solidify his place in the throne. When it was all said and done, Shah Jahan had passed away, but sadly, due to his political strife and some family drama that is straight out of All My Children, he was not given proper burial rights, which to them was a big slap in the face. That sucks, dude. That sucks. You rule a country, you're nice to everybody, and then your freaking son just comes in and stabs you in the back. Number 4, Footloose. Remember Footloose? 80s classic movie, right? It's a good movie. It's a feel-good movie. With some decent music, too. The plot is a little rough, to say the least. I mean, what town would outlaw dancing? I mean, who in their right mind would ever do that? Well, meet King Aurangzeb, who banned poetry, music, dancing, and even some writings. May as well just throw Kevin Bacon and dancing in there while you're at it. As a small town, I'd be more worried about what those teenagers are doing after the dance party, not the actual dancing. Aurangzeb's concerns were that of religious reform, as in classic medieval times like previously mentioned. Well, as you can guess, this didn't go very well, as the empire was already a well-established place of mixed religion and arts and all the other beautiful culture stuff. Taking that away wasn't going to make the people happy, and it didn't. He struggled to maintain power of a successful empire like his father did. Ew, rough. It's, you know, if you take over and it gets better, fine, but if it's worse, kind of awkward. Number 3, the Red Fort. As it turns out, the same architect who built the Taj Mahal also built many other Mughal Empire buildings like the Red Fort. You do good work, you get more work. As simple as that. It's the life of an actor. The Red Fort, originally white and red, hence the name, was the main residence of Mughal emperors after the capital moved from Agra to Delhi. At one point, even held the throne that was encrusted with the crown jewel of the Mughal Empire. It's where the business happened. It was an important building for the empire and culture that still stands today. On Indian Independence Day today, the Prime Minister raises the flag from the fort and addresses the nation. Number 2. Humayun's tomb. Okay, so we all know the Taj Mahal was built for a wife who had passed away by a grieving husband. Well, Humayun's tomb was built for a husband who had passed away by a grieving wife. The first garden tomb ever constructed, and honestly, when the editor pulls a picture up of this bad boy, it's pretty cool. Considering how old these buildings are, it's impressive it's still standing. Oh, and when I said wife, I actually meant mistress. It was a mistress. Built by the side chick, if you will. I wonder how the wife felt. Better not bring that up. If side building a palace, what's the wifey doing? Well, you know what I'm saying? Jeez. Number 1, British imports. Yes, the whole reason Britain tore down an empire and stole some tea and maybe some artifacts. I don't know, I haven't heard. Or rather had some solid importation of tea coming in every month. Whether or not these farmhands were paid, well, you get the point, you know where I'm going with that. However, more interesting, and I thought I had to bring this up because it's just so cool, was textiles. It sounds lame, but it's really cool actually. Textiles, cloth, silk, dyes, you name it. Europe did a lot of trade with the Mughals, but Britain, of course, Britain wanted a cap on the market, as 95% of their textile goods actually came from the Mughal Empire. So it just made sense to own the whole thing. If you're gonna get 95%, may as well just take the whole thing, just take it, it's yours. Number 10, unproud history. Blame it on my Canadian education, dyslexia, or me just being an idiot, but it took me 3 times to read over properly Mughal instead of Mongol. Mughal, Mongol, Mughal, Mongol. It also took me a second to realize that I'm talking about India, not Mongolia. It's okay, folks. I'm just gonna drink some water and touch some grass. Help you, okay? Yes, the Mughal Empire. As it turns out, my confusion is semi-appropriate, as the Mughals were descendants of the mighty Genghis Khan, hence the Mongols. Makes a lot of sense now that you think about it. Turkic Mongols, to be exact. The Mughals were well aware of the Mongols' reputation and their history. Let's just say they weren't too proud of it. You can't blame them. However, they were more proud of their Timur-sided heritage. Honestly, like I said, you can't blame them. It's kind of like your dad's side of the family, you know? They're okay, but everyone likes mom's side better. That's just how it goes. Number 9, Might of Ahoms. The Galactic Empire, the NCR, and the Mughals. What do all these large organized militaries share in common? They can all be defeated by a bunch of scruffy looking ragtags who spend too much time on mentats and in their X-Wings. All sci-fi jokes aside, the Ahoms were a tribal people who happened to live in the wrong neighborhood per se. Thing is, these guys had some serious grit, as in when dueling against the mighty Mughal Empire, they were not victorious once, twice, or 3 times, but a total of 17 times. 17, that's a lot. At a certain point, you gotta respect a group for kicking your butt that many times. At some point, you just gotta throw in the towel and say, hey, let them keep the land. They can have it. Serious. I don't need it. I don't want it. Number 8, smoke. Love it or hate it, smoking has been a part of life for a long time. Longer than you might think, actually. No, not the age of Marlboro cowboys and ad glitter telling you not to. No, hacking a dart of the past was a little bit different than getting mad at the Leafs when they're losing and you're having a break outside. Interesting enough, however, it's speculated that the hookah, or the shisha, was invented by one of the emperor's top doctors of the time. Naturally, this was something saved for the elite because, well, you can't have peasantry damaging their lungs, come on. They might need those bad boys after all, with all the work they do and stuff. Number 7, science and big booms. We've come a very long way in history, some might say too far. We've got cars, computers, and depending on who you ask, we've been to the moon. I say we have. It just makes sense. Come on, guys. I mean, come on. Obviously we have, because the moon is made of cheese, and that's where we get cheese, right? That's what my mom said. We eat cheese from there, right? Well, there certainly was no rocket ships back then, but the scientific advancement is what is to note here. The Mughal Empire was a big contributor of the Islamic scientific revolution, as there were many contributions in math, algebra, and other useful inventions. They were one of the first to use black powder. What does that mean? Besides fireworks, it means blam blams. And if you know history or anything about the time period, you know how important blam blams are. Part of the black powder empires, as they're called. Number 6, Taj Mahal. Husbands and wives. Marriage. Beautiful marriage. The whole sanctimony that brings lovers together. I'm sure all of our viewers at home will agree in saying marriage was the best thing they ever did, and absolutely not a training experience after 15 years. Right, guys? Shah Jahan would agree with that, the mighty emperor who went great lengths for his beloved wife. Now, I'm sure you know this story, but in case you don't, this was the man that was so heartbroken from his wife's passing, so distraught, that he built the Taj Mahal. That's like your partner at home saying, you know what, babe, I love you so much. Bam, there's the Empire State Building. There it is, look at it. That's for you. The Taj Mahal is the crown jewel of Mughal architecture, and at the time cost around $1 billion with our inflation. Every year, the Taj Mahal brings thousands of tourists to witness its ivory beauty. It is a beautiful building, can't lie about that, but $1 billion? Man, he must have loved that woman. Must have loved her. Goddamn. Number 5, the Queen of India. So this massive and powerful empire, why is it not around anymore? I mean, in reality, we just don't do the whole empire thing anymore, unless you're Heisenberg, because he's in the empire business. But what's the main reason why they're not around anymore? Do you hear that? It's the Queen's Navy coming to shore, and the boats are chock full of redcoats. Look out, India, they're coming for your tea. Unfortunately for those living in India and the Mughal Empire at the time, this was sort of like the beginning of the end. As some years later, India would be brutally forced into one of the many colonies of the British Commonwealth. And yeah, did I mention brutal? Because it was pretty brutal. It wasn't the nicest of occupations. The British ruled over for many, many years, until a certain peace-loving Gandhi came years later and set the record straight. Number 4, relatable. King Akbar of the Mughal Empire was a very notable leader, but today I'm talking about him for some other reasons. One that I can relate to personally. No, I'm not a secret king and have a palace of my own full of servants, although, I mean, if you guys want to make me king, I wouldn't say no. It's well noted that Akbar was illiterate, which for royalty was rare back then, since that's usually the only people who can read or are allowed to read. Can't have the peasantry being too smart now, can't have that. However, some historians suggest that his literacy isn't to blame for a lack of trying, but it's dyslexia. Yeah, that's right. It's the same reason why I hated reading as a kid, and in high school, sorry English teachers, you can just Google Cliff Notes, it's the future. Akbar, however, did not have Cliff Notes. He had the option to hire artists to illustrate beautiful works of art in order to comprehend some things that needed visualization since he couldn't read. I did not possess such powers, however, still up to debate. You know, if you guys want to make me king, that's fine, I'm okay with it. Number 3, Colera Belts. Okay, this one is just too weird not to mention. So in the end of the Mughal Empire, there were lots of British around. That's kind of how the occupation goes, lots of redcoats and whatnot. However, it wasn't exactly an easy job for the British either. Some folks just don't like being ruled over. I wouldn't. Interesting enough though, there was also a fair share of sicknesses going around. And when you think about it, I mean, you take a whole bunch of people, mix them in with another population of a bunch of people to a place they've never been before, added with it's not the most hygienic time in history, sprinkle a little hot weather, and yeah, people are probably gonna get sick. Cholera, to be exact. Cholera was a big one. So what's the solution? How do we cure this cholera? Is it hand washing, hygiene? So, do we keep our distance? What do we do? Well, the answer was Colera Belts, and basically it's just a piece of red flannel fabric to wrap around your belly. That's how you cure cholera. At the time, cholera was thought to be caused by a chilly or cold belly, so warm up your belly, no more cholera. But in India, where it's really hot, and places like that around there in the Mughal Empire, it's kind of hot anyway, so I don't know why you need that. It doesn't really add up. Number 2, diamonds. The Kohinoor diamond was literally the crown jewel of the Mughal Empire. A jewel worth more than anyone could really handle for the time, and definitely today. It's too much for you. You don't want it. Too much pressure. You can never sell it. It used to be encrusted upon the Mughal throne, but after some violent disagreements, it was stolen, and it passed hands, where it then went to someone else, in their hands. And after that, then someone else had it. And then somebody else had it. And then, like a trinket your grandma tries to give you, it probably sat in her basement for a very long time, before then it ended up in the hands of blah to yourself, Queen Victoria. Who else? And either if you think that's fair or not, it's been a part of the British crown jewels ever since. Because they take stuff, that's what they do. Number 1, Anarkali. A classic tale of love and betrayal. And maybe it actually didn't happen. Historians aren't too sure about this one. But if it is true, oh baby, what a juicy story. Anarkali was a poor peasant, but worked her way up to becoming Akbar's wife. But she also tripped, fell, and landed in somebody else's bedroom, if you know what I mean. Naturally, Akbar was cheesed. So he did the next sensible thing and had her buried alive in the walls like Bowser did to the Toads in Mario 64. However, no amount of Power Stars could help us find out if she really even existed. The story of the forbidden love, however, has been retold countless times in Asian culture. I was going to go for a Count of Monte Cristo reference that was stuck in the walls, but I feel like you guys know Mario 64 better. Pop culture beats books, right? Who reads books?